You're a systems thinker. Give us a systems analysis of how do you intervene with what seems to be a series of related but unconnected failures. And as a social value creator, where do you intercede?
Well, we need kind of a, to me, is people forget crisis very quickly. And I think the crisis was not big enough. We're still all doing fine in general. If you look at real crisis, this could be prevented, and it's not big enough because it's 1 year. We had they had the anniversary, and I'm not a politician. I opted out of that. But if you look at the G20 meetings, and this is all nice and fine. A year ago, everybody was in panic mode. And now we're back to shaking hands and having joint dinners, and it's no more measure at all of unity to fix it. So either the crisis was not enough to really shake things up because it didn't reach high enough. It hits always the people who are at the margins, and the margins are high this time. Ask our university and the state of Maryland, and how the effects. So we have that problem. But the people on the top, I heard yesterday, okay, Goldman Sachs is going to reinstate the bonus system. Everybody wants to kind of have back their bonuses that they didn't get last year because we had a little problem there. So that is my problem. It didn't hit the right people. And I think one other almost sarcastic idea would be, let's learn from how bankers got the system rigged the way they did. It's like you're at home, you're destroying the china that is in the drawer. Your parents come home and say, "You did a great job. We have more china downstairs. Why don't you get that too?" And that's kind of the analogy I find right now. We just need to find out how these bankers did this. Somebody needs to write a leadership book on that. And maybe use that for a better cause.
Okay. Rachelle, thoughts on kind of a more system look, or where would you begin to cut into this loop?
So I think that we clearly have some issues, right? So I sort of view it as there are kind of two prongs in which government needs to sort of get out of the way to allow kind of the markets to work well and police these kinds of failures perhaps a little bit better than what happened. And so the first one would be sort of a slight tangent, but kind of removing sort of distortionary subsidies to certain types of industries. And we could think of it as, to the banking or the cars, but you could also think of it as, subsidies to oil, which have the effect of making gasoline cheaper and making it prohibitively expensive for new fuels to really be economical on the market. And then the other side of it is to also enhance labor mobility. And so the way that I think of that is, so we need some sort of state-provided social supports to allow the churn of firms, right? So the turnover of firms, that is the characteristic of the capitalist system, but without hurting these people who are generally always the ones that are hurt in the crisis, right? Which tend to be kind of the lower parts of the pyramid within the firm. So you can allow people to move between jobs, as the economy changes and moves, and we have these processes of creative destruction, so that we don't keep having the same kinds of crises and bailouts from the top. That's kind of the places where I think we need to start.
Okay, so let me first, underscore one of the points that Rachelle made. I think it's really important to allow for small firms to survive and thrive. And in fact, some recent research suggests that most of the new value creation is coming from small firms. So whatever we can do systemically to make that innovation and entrepreneurship happen, I think is critical. But I think we are also missing one very important piece of the puzzle, and that is, to use a cliche, the power of the people. And I think eventually what's going to turn this around, and many of the evils that the questioner talked about, ultimately it has to be grassroots movements. It has to be people saying, we're not going to take this.
Yeah, I think my 2 cents is, I think that's, again, related back to the conference we're all here for. I think it's incredibly hopeful to see what both aging baby boomers are trying to do with our last act, which is to try to get back to some of the things we talked about 40 years ago. And then kids in school today who are coming out of school, I think, who are more motivated than even my generation was 40 years ago to make things right. But rather than going into some of the companies that Rosabeth was talking about, they're doing the Honest Tea version of it, which is let's create a parallel, alternative, better model. And let's have competition. Let's have business model competition between two versions of creating a better world. And I think it's incredibly optimistic to see the way that young people coming out of business schools are well educated with the principles of management, but motivated to use those skills to do something fundamentally different that will alter the trajectory of our society in the future. And so the number of talented young kids who are finding older people who they can mentor is really optimistic and quite hopeful. And I think it presents in effect goes back to the first question about trust in big business. If this is a competition ultimately for talent, bright young people are going to vote with their feet. And if trust isn't earned, they will vote with their feet to put their time, energy, talent into things that are making a difference. And you will see people subscribing to the Muhammad Yunus version of hybrid capitalism and social business. And there'll be a very interesting competition over who's really going to create the future.